The story begins in the Canadian town of Bailey Downs, where a little boy is playing in the yard. When he wipes his face, we see that something has left him dirty with red. Then his mother approaches and is disgusted to see that he is messing with what appears to be an animal's paw. Picking her son up, she goes to check on the family dog and only finds the remains of the animal, which seems to have been attacked by a beast. Crying, she runs out into the street shouting that there has been another attack, but nobody is very shaken. One of the neighbors is a gothic teenager named Brigitte Fitzgerald. She and her sister Ginger are girls with very dark personalities who even plan to attempt to take their own lives soon. Revolted by the world they live in, they made a pact at 8 years old, promising to leave this cruel world together. However, now that it's time to act, Brigitte seems to have doubts, and Ginger pressures her not to change her mind. As if this macabre conversation wasn't enough, the sisters even rehearse various ways to execute the plan, taking photos to analyze which is the most dramatic. Teacher Wayne is outraged when the two present the photos as a school project, but the classmates just laugh, as they are already used to the Fitzgerald sisters. The next class is physical education, and it's the girls' team that is training, under the watchful eyes of Jason and his friends. Always isolated from the rest, the Gothic sisters begin to badmouth their classmate Tina Sinclair, and one of her friends overhears the conversation, running to rat them out. As the game begins, Tina finds a way to knock Brigitte down, and she falls face first into the disgusting carcass of a dog, yet another victim of the mysterious beast of Bailey Downs. Ginger defends her sister and tells Tina to never lay a finger on her again. The teacher intervenes before the fight gets ugly, and Ginger goes to comfort Brigitte, who is cleaning her face in the locker room. The two immediately begin planning a horrific revenge, even considering taking it out on Trina's dog. Brigitte says that this way, they can use the fake blood from the photos to stage an attack scene and pin all the blame on the beast. Unbeknownst to them, Trina is chatting with her crush, a guy named Sam, who sells questionable merchandise at the school gate. On the way home, Jason surprises Ginger with an invitation to hang out, and she rejects him after a brief moment of shock. After he leaves, Brigitte expresses concern and asks Ginger not to change her personality just to get a boyfriend, but the sister assures her that will never happen. Then we meet their parents, Pamela and Henry. During dinner, Pamela notices that Ginger is experiencing back pain and starts asking questions. When the mother suggests it might be cramps, Ginger nearly chokes on her food, and Henry grumbles that this is not a topic for dinner. However, Pamela says that both daughters are way past the age of experiencing this for the first time, which is a bit concerning. Tired of this inconvenient conversation, Ginger ends up swearing and gets grounded. Pamela also tells Brigitte that she shouldn't go out at night while the dog attacks are happening, reminding her that later she and Henry will go to therapy. Ignoring the prohibition, the sisters grab the bags of fake blood and leave home at the first chance, ready for revenge against Tina. Passing through the park, they find another dead dog on the ground and decide to include that in the ghastly surprise, but soon notice that the body is still warm and the parts are coming apart. When Brigitte warns her sister that her leg is dirty, she realizes that's not quite the case. Apparently, Pamela was right, and Ginger is finally experiencing her first period. She doesn't take the news very well and even asks to be sacrificed if she starts showing signs of PMS. Then the two suddenly stop talking, as a toy horse begins to move on its own for no reason. They decide to go home, but it's at this moment that the creature suddenly attacks Ginger, taking her away into the woods. Brigitte panics and starts screaming as she searches for her, until Ginger reappears. The monster is right behind her, and Brigitte witnesses the attack in horror. She tries to scare the creature away, and even hits it on the back, but ends up being thrown away. When Ginger finally manages to break free, the two flee and reach the road, almost getting hit by Sam's van. He ends up hitting the beast and gets out to check very carefully, while the sisters run home. When Brigitte tries to treat Ginger's injuries, she is shocked to see that they are already healing by themselves. Even so, she is worried and wants to call an ambulance, but Ginger stops her, swearing that she is fine. She doesn't want her mother to find out about any of this. While fiddling with the camera, Brigitte discovers that she managed to capture the monster, although just part of its face. The next day, Ginger feels very sick, despite clearly having recovered from the attack. She says it's just cramps, but warns Brigitte that the sensation is much worse than expected. The two bump into Jason at the market, and he notices Ginger's situation by the number of pads in the purchase. Explaining that he has several sisters, he says he knows how to get relief and convinces her to try Sam's herbs. Just as she feared, Brigitte finds herself isolated outside, watching the dent in the front of the van. When Sam arrives, he tells her that he hit a werewolf, without further explanations. Seeing that his clients have decided to use the van as a living room, he gets furious and orders everyone to leave immediately. Tina soon comes to flirt with him again, taking the opportunity to be rude to Ginger, and it's then that her dog begins to act strangely towards the girl, barking at her aggressively. She gets rid of the dog with a kick and locks herself in the bathroom, but Brigitte follows her and starts demanding explanations, as it is evident that something is very wrong. When Ginger yields and shows her shoulder, Brigitte sees that there is strange fur growing from the scars. She remembers that the bite happened on a full moon night, but her sister gets irritated by the suggestion and then realizes that she is bleeding quite heavily. They decide to speak to Nurse Fairy, who finds all of this normal and just asks Ginger to take precautions against pregnancy from now on. At home, Pamela discovers the news while doing laundry and makes a celebratory cake with strawberry sauce, to everyone's dismay. Thinking that Brigitte ratted her out, Ginger accuses her of being jealous of her new social life, and the two end up fighting. In the following days, Brigitte researches werewolves while continuing to find clues about the transformation. Besides her constant bad mood and tufts of fur, Ginger's appearance also renews, catching the attention of all the boys, and she begins dating Jason. After a week, Sam shows up at school looking for Brigitte because she dropped the photo of the monster in his van. He repeats that he hit a werewolf that night and is relieved to see that she seems to already be aware of this. However, she suddenly pulls away from him and prefers to continue the investigation alone. On the calendar, she counts the weeks until the full moon, knowing that it will coincide with her sister's cycle. It's then that she decides to clear up a doubt while Ginger is sleeping, and is horrified to confirm her suspicions. She is growing a wolf tail. This is too much to handle alone, and Brigitte changes her mind about partnering with Sam. However, she avoids mentioning Ginger and lies that all of this is happening to her instead. Sam gets excited about the challenge and does everything to calm her down, since not all legends can be true. The biggest proof is that the van took out the original werewolf without needing silver bullets, and therefore, it's also possible that there is a cure for the phenomenon. At the school exit, Brigitte becomes anxious when she sees Jason making out with Ginger, knowing that she is ovulating today. Since she refuses to talk privately, Brigitte ends up shouting this information in the middle of the courtyard, trying to warn Jason. He discovers the danger later, and in the worst possible way, when things start to get out of control in the car. Ginger's behavior becomes more aggressive, and the metamorphosis advances as she attacks him. Brigitte hears her sister crying as she arrives, and is startled by the bloodstains, going after her to the bathroom. Feeling sick, Ginger says she confused her murderous instinct with teenage desires, and confesses to having devoured the neighbor's dog. Regarding Jason, she says that today was her first time, and Brigitte gets irritated to learn that her sister didn't even protect herself. Trying to curb the transformation, they decide to pierce Ginger's belly button, hoping that a silver ring will control her monster side. When she asks where the jewelry came from, Brigitte lies that she found it on the street to avoid admitting her friendship with Sam. The next day, the neighbor screams when he finds his dog's remains in the yard, while Brigitte helps her sister hide her tail. Jason arrives at school all messed up, and Sam also shows up, calling for Brigitte. Tina thinks they are together and is outraged to have been replaced by the weird girl from class. Brigitte dismisses the guy rudely, but Ginger notices everything anyway. She complains about having her problem shared with a stranger, and when her sister says he just wants to help, she accuses her of being naive. However, as the game starts and Tina returns to mess with Brigitte, Ginger goes after her and starts punching her. The teacher separates the fight and sends Ginger to Wayne's room, where Brigitte hears the scolding from behind the door. Meanwhile, Jason begins to feel the effects of the previous night in his body, and Brigitte realizes he has been infected. Ginger doesn't seem to care much about this and still insists on going along to meet Sam, which makes Brigitte nervous. She pleads with Ginger not to reveal the lie, as Sam thinks the werewolf is her and might stop helping them if he gets angry. She swears that she will behave, and the two go to Sam's greenhouse, where he shows his new discoveries. There is a plant that can block the metamorphosis, but it only grows in spring, so they need to wait. Ginger becomes furious upon hearing this and starts cursing Sam, accusing him of having his eye on her underage sister. Later, she is shaving her legs when she notices a black claw coming out of her foot. At night, Trina arrives at their house demanding her dog back and tells Brigitte that she saw when Ginger kidnapped it. Speaking about Sam, she starts crying and calls him a virgin collector, warning Brigitte that he is no good. Then Ginger suddenly appears and attacks the visitor, but is forced to take her hand off her mouth when she starts to vomit. Tina takes the chance to grab one of the knives and manages to escape, but she ends up slipping on the spilled milk. She hits her head right on the corner of the counter and dies in front of the two sisters. Since Pamela and Henry are already on their way home, the only way out is to pretend that all of this is just another scene for the photos. Tina's body is shoved into the freezer, and Brigitte does everything to keep her mother away until they can dig a grave in the yard, not realizing they have dropped a pair of fingers. The police soon begin searching for Tina, and Jason corners Brigitte at school, telling her that he grew a tail and devoured his own dog. He demands to talk to Ginger and almost resorts to violence, but she is saved by the janitor by a hair's breadth. At home, Pamela interrogates the daughters about a call from the school where she discovered that Ginger skipped class. Additionally, Wayne warned that the police want to speak with her about the fight with Tina. As Ginger steps away, irritated, Brigitte notices that her mother has bought that plant that can cure her sister. After getting rid of Pamela's questions with compliments about her parenting style, Brigitte catches Ginger trying to cut her tail off and pleads with her not to do that, showing that she got the plant. In the morning, Brigitte hides the knife she used in a drawer and locks the bathroom door with Ginger inside, so she cannot cause problems while she goes to talk to Sam. He says that the most effective way would be to inject the plant into the vein and demonstrates that he has realized that the wolf is Ginger. Then, the two begin preparations while Ginger practically destroys the bathroom. When Brigitte gets home, she finds that she has already destroyed the door and is looking for Jason at school. On her way there, Brigitte finds him attacking a child and ends up using the syringe to defend herself against him. However, this accident proves that the cure works, as he immediately returns to normal. As soon as she steps into the school, the loudspeaker calls her name to Wayne's room. Upon arriving there, she discovers that it is Ginger who is calling, and furthermore, she has already finished off the teacher. Henry finds Tina's fingers, and Pamela laughs at his shock, saying that it must just be some Halloween thing from the girls. But just in case, she stores them in a jar and puts them in the fridge. The sisters wait until the school empties to clean up the crime scene, but they forget about the janitor. He goes straight to Wayne's room while Brigitte steals his cleaning cart. She is shocked to see him dragging himself down the hall on the brink of death. Increasingly uncontrollable, Ginger soon appears behind him and starts tormenting him until she finally smashes a bottle on his head. To both of their surprise, he soon revives and shows signs of being infected, but Ginger eliminates the competition by sinking her claws into his stomach. Brigitte finally begins to realize that this cruelty already existed in Ginger before the werewolf, and the two start to fight. Ginger easily overpowers her and says she is going to the Halloween party at Sam's greenhouse. At the same time, Pamela decides to clear things up and starts digging. Brigitte is trying to run to the party when her mother shows up in the car and offers a ride. Ginger causes a sensation upon arriving at the greenhouse and heads straight for Sam. At the door, Pamela tells Brigitte to fetch her sister and says she won't let the police take them. Her plan is to set fire to their own house the next day and flee with her daughters, even leaving Henry behind. Seeing that her mother still doesn't know everything, Brigitte swears that none of this was her fault and asks her to lock the doors after she leaves. Ginger is still trying to seduce Sam, but he resists, and she is about to attack him when Brigitte arrives. With a knife, she makes a cut on her own palm and rubs it on one of her sister's wounds, purposefully infecting herself. Sam pleads with her not to do this, but the two leave him lying there. Spotting Pamela lost in the middle of the party, they exit through the back and then Sam attacks Ginger with a shovel. Brigitte explains that all of this was just a way to get her sister home, where the rest of the antidote is. He decides to take them there, and doesn't realize that Ginger is finishing her transformation as she regains her senses. She escapes from the van as soon as they arrive, and Brigitte still wants to try the antidote even knowing she will now be dealing with a monster. As the beast destroys the house and climbs the stairs, she and Sam go to the kitchen to prepare the injection. However, Brigitte starts to feel strange as she picks up the plant and says her hand is going numb. The two lock themselves in the pantry to finish preparations safely, but as soon as they open the door, Ginger pulls Sam outside and brutally attacks him. Brigitte tries to peek in, pushing the door with her foot, but the beast slams it shut with a dreadful snarl. She then waits in the dark until everything goes silent and tiptoes out of the pantry. There is a huge pool of blood on the kitchen floor, and the syringe is right in the middle, intact. Brigitte manages to grab it and begins searching for Ginger throughout the house, but starts feeling sick again. She nearly faints on the stairs and ends up dropping the syringe. Coming to, she tries to stick her arm between the steps to retrieve the injection, and it's then that she hears a groan of pain. Upon reaching the hallway, she sees the monster next to Sam, who is breathing like the janitor, and therefore has also been infected. Brigitte cautiously approaches and tries to come to terms with her fate alongside the beast, but she gets nauseous from the thick blood and rejects the monstrosity. The werewolf seems enraged by this and takes out its anger on Sam, sinking its teeth into his neck. Quickly fleeing, Brigitte squeezes into a space the beast cannot reach and sees she is near the syringe. The monster attacks again as she tries to pass through the beams, nearly causing the stairs to collapse, but Brigitte escapes and retrieves the antidote. As soon as the werewolf gives her an opening, she runs up to the bedroom and grabs the knife from the drawer. It isn't long before the creature appears, cornering Brigitte against the wall. Leaping to attack her, it ends up landing right on the knife and loses its strength immediately, rolling to the side. Brigitte cries at the sight of her sister's photos on the wall, lamenting all the time she spent thinking about death. Only then does she remember the syringe still in her hand, but she doesn't take the antidote without saying goodbye to Ginger first.